Where would you like to start?
I'd like to start with me just taking over the whole program.
Well, that would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
You and Stu can go out for donuts.
Wait a minute.
And,
if you're serious, I'll make that deal right now.
Yeah, we can just spot you up and leave. If that's okay.
No, your listeners, they would,
No, they want donuts too.
They would hold it against me.
Yeah.
No, you start wherever you want, Beck. I mean, I just wrote a column of the day for BillO'Reilly.com on our pal Geraldo.
Oh, my gosh.
Insisting that the Molly Tibbetts story is just about a murder, has nothing to do with illegal
Right.
immigration.
So I want to get to that. Let's save that. I want to get to that because I saw something on CNN that I just sent to you. Did you watch it?
I saw.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Oh my gosh! Okay, so let's start with Cohen and Manafort.
Okay.
All right. What do you think?
So Manafort really didn't have much to do with the country as it stands now, unless he will start to accuse the president of something. So if it's a standalone, and he did what he did, obviously, he deserves to go to prison, and we sing him the Steam song, sha-na-na-na, hey, 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 goodbye. All right? So that's all.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Trump, he won't, apparently will not rule out pardoning him.
Yes.
I think that would be a gigantic mistake.
So do I.
Okay.
And it's amazing I'm agreeing with you, but I don't think that a man who cheats on his taxes at that level deserves a pardon. It's as simple as that. So, but the Manafort thing, we're not going to really have much to talk about until he does go to prison or he does not.
Yeah.
The Cohen thing is much more interesting and much more
it's connected to the president. It is connected, at least that one.
Yeah,
Manafort has what he was accused of, what he did was years before Trump. There's no connection. Bad guy goes to jail, end of story.
Yeah, but the only problem with the Cohen story is Robert Mueller and the U.S. Justice Department. That's what concerns me, not what Michael Cohen may or may not have done as far as silencing women who had affairs with Donald Trump. That doesn't seem to be a major situation to me. But it is clear that the U.S. Justice Department, under Attorney General Jeff Sessions, clear that they are allowing plea bargains to crimes in order to get their boss, President Trump. He's the boss of the Justice Department, all right? Sessions answers to him. So he's got a department that's basically saying, hey, we want to get you. We're going to do all this kind of stuff. And I say that because the campaign finance violations that Cohen is going to plead guilty to are BS. All right, it's crap. Nobody would be indicted on those things. Nobody would be charged with those things unless there is a check directly from the Trump for President campaign in the hands of one of these women. And we haven't seen any evidence of that at all. And Trump denies it, that he used campaign funds. So I don't understand why this is even taking place, why Michael Cohen was even charged with this.
This is the point that Alan Dershowitz is making. He's like, show me the crime. He said, just point it out in the book and I'll shut up. But there's no crime on the books.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, he pled guilty to a crime, right? So he pled guilty to something, and he also pled guilty to tax. It was also tax issues, though, too. It wasn't just campaign finance.
But that's aside, though.
Yes, it is.
The tax issues had nothing to do with Trump.
Right.
That's taxi medallion stuff in New York City. This is the only link to Cohen to Trump is paying off the women, and where did the money come from? If the money came from private funds, there's no crime. So why is this even happening?
So, Bill, if we find out, because they're saying they have additional evidence, including messages, but they're not clear about what it is yet. We don't know what the additional evidence is. If it comes out that the money came from the Trump campaign, routed through the Trump organization, would you say that that is a really serious issue?
Yes, of course. Yes, that would elevate it. But it doesn't make sense to indict somebody on a campaign finance charge and not put out that the reason we're indicting him is because it came from campaign money. Does that make any sense to anybody? Why would you hold that back?
Right. And Bill, one more thing on this before we move on from this particular topic. Do you think that we, as the media and us included in all of this, are focusing too much on Trump as it relates to this investigation? We all know that that's what they're after, but in reality, Mueller really did something wrong. Cohen, seemingly, with at least on the tax side, really did something wrong. And, the fact that a couple of high-ranking executives in this organization are going to prison is a significant development, even if it has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
Well, you said Mueller. You meant Manafort.
Manafort, sorry.
Look, the story doesn't have any importance to anybody unless the president's involved. All right? Manafort trying to get away with hiding money, nobody cares about that. I'm glad the authorities got him. Cohen doing some sleazy thing with New York City taxi cabs and again, trying to hide money from the authorities. Good, he deserves to go to prison. You can't do that. However, once you get into a position where you're trying desperately, you're using the weight of the entire Justice Department paid for by the U.S. taxpayer, desperately trying to find something, anything, on a sitting president of the United States is disturbing, is it not?
It is, and the pressure that they're using is problematic, not just in this particular case, but throughout the justice system. If you had an honest media
in this country, the media would actually be defending Trump. The media would be saying, this isn't good for the country, and the Justice Department is going on this wild goose chase to try to get the president. Mueller has been 18 months and still hasn't produced one shred of evidence of Russian collusion. This is wrong. It's hurting all Americans. Put up or shut up. That's what an honest press would do. Instead, the national media is a lynch mob encouraging the expedition to bring down the president. So that's how screwed up our entire country is at this point.
Well, we would. What's frustrating is you say an honest media, but let's be completely honest. It's not just the media. If this was happening, if Hillary Clinton would have won, and the situation was the same, she paid hush money to a bunch of women to keep them quiet a couple of weeks before the election, for Bill Clinton, or maybe she was having an affair. I don't know. If it was the same story, we would all be up in arms and we would be demanding impeachment. And the media would be saying the exact opposite of what they're saying now. That's the problem.
I don't know I wouldn't be demanding impeachment.
I mean the general right, the general Fox News would be.
The Hillary haters would be, trying to put a noose around her neck, and this is what's wrong. I mean, I was talking to somebody last night, and they were lamenting they have nowhere to go on television to find out the news. They can't find out the news.
Nope.
Because whatever you tune in, that agency is going to either be trying to get Trump off or trying to put him in prison. And there's no in between. So any fact that may emerge isn't looked upon as a fact. It's, well, can we use it for or against him? And, I mean, again, that puts the country in dire trouble when its citizens can't get really what's happening. And that's what I'm trying to do on BillO'Reilly.com. I think you're trying to do it on the radio and on the Blaze. But it's rare, and it's getting very, very intense.
We just did an hour on the truth of what's happening in South Africa. And the truth is nothing really is happening yet. The seeds are there. The people are fanning the flames of it. But what's happening in South Africa now is there is an upswing with murder, but the upswing of violent crime all across the country, even black on black, whites on whites, is through the roof.
I did it yesterday, so I'm glad you took from my thing.
That's why we subscribe, so we can do some research and then bring it to the radio.
On BillO'Reilly.com yesterday. Again, Trump doesn't take the time to research the situation and tweets out something that's half true, but half of it isn't true. The one thing that you overlooked in your analysis that you just told me is that in South Africa, it is clear that the government in place wants to take land. I mean, take it.
Oh, yeah. No, we covered that.
Yeah, we did.
Who are a certain color.
Yeah.
White.
Right.
All right, and that has happened.
That's why I say they're planting the seeds, and they are watering those seeds. I mean, the new president of South Africa is clearly racist. He believes that he wants white people to leave the country, which they will, and he wants to steal their land. And Zimbabwe did the same thing, and look what happened to Zimbabwe. But in the process, if you've been to South Africa, and I have, you know that it is a country where many people live in rural areas that don't have any protection at all, no police protection. All right? And these murders of white farmers are happening at an increased rate because the criminals know they will not even be hunted, that they can go in and kill anybody they want and no one will look for them. And that story is explosive, but Americans don't care about what happens in South Africa. So what I've seen is this really dangerous scenario of the president tweeting something, which what he tweeted was, hey, I've asked the Secretary of State to look into this.
Look into it.
Okay,
right.
You probably shouldn't say that. You should probably just go to his office and say, hey, I want you to look into this, and then tweet what you find. But what happened was he didn't tweet anything crazy. He said, hey, I want to look into this.
No, but he said it was happening. That was the problem. Because it hasn't been passed.
You're right.
It hasn't been passed by the government.
You're right. So immediately the press, instead of taking a measured tone and saying, this is going around and, he's
a racist.
Yeah, he's a racist.
He's a racist for even bringing it up.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
And which only pushes people to believe. I mean, this is the worst case scenario on this, and I think it's going to play out this way if we don't back up and stop this nonsense. What's going to happen is because Donald Trump tweeted this and the press said, well, he's a crazy racist. When the Secretary of State comes back and says, no, that's not actually happening, the people have already chosen a side. You're either with Trump or you're with CNN. And if the Secretary of State comes back and says, no, here are the facts, they're going to blame it on the deep state. So, I mean, it just gets worse.
I don't even think that people are going to even pay attention to what's happening in South Africa. I think that basically many Americans, perhaps most, have tuned out of the whole thing now. Fox News ratings this week collapsed. You would think that with all of the stories involved and all of the intensity, that Fox News' ratings would be through the roof. That did not happen. They lost audience. And who gained? MSNBC gained, because all the Trump haters who want him out came in. They knew they weren't going to hear anything but, yeah, let's get him out, let's get him out. So they came into MSNBC. So, but the people who don't have any ideological craziness, they just didn't watch. They just said, I've had enough. I know I can't get the right story, so I'll go to a subscription service like BillO'Reilly.com, or I'll go to the Blaze, and I'll try to get what I can get out of there. But I know I'm not going to be served by the national press agencies. I mean, how sad is this?
It's depressing.
That's what's happening.
Bill, one quick question before we go to break. Do you think this Cohen, Manafort, this whole thing that's happened over the past week, is that going to have an immediate effect on Trump's approval rating either way?
I don't know about approval rating, but it will have an effect on the midterms unless Donald Trump regains momentum. So Donald Trump now is on the defensive, all right? I think that his crew is going to stay with him, and there are enough people that feel this is BS that they may approve of his job. So he might stay in the high 40s. But the momentum is clearly against Republicans now. And if the president wants to hold the House, he's got to regain that momentum.
Okay.
And illegal immigration is probably the way he's going to do it.
Okay, I want to talk to you about illegal immigration. I want to talk to you about impeachment if they do take the House. which sounds like you think that there is an increasing chance that that is absolutely going to happen. We'll talk to Bill O'Reilly, get his opinions on those things when we come back. Bill O'Reilly, what do you make of David Pecker from the National Enquirer getting immunity yesterday to speak to prosecutors? He apparently told prosecutors that of his knowledge of the payments to women. Also, sources said that Pecker provided investigators with the details about the payments Cohen made to the women.
Sources said, Beck?
I know.
Sources said. In order for the federal government to charge an American citizen with a crime, they've got to have enough evidence, all right, to go to a court and present a viable case, or they will be charged with malicious prosecution.
Sure.
So, if Cohen, when they raided his office, if they found evidence that he paid these women off, they had to corroborate that.
Right.
Therefore, there's only one person who could corroborate it.
Right.
That was Pecker. Okay?
But there still is no crime here unless it came from...
Don't get ahead of yourself. All right. So the FBI goes and they sit around their little table and they go, look, for whatever reason, we want to get Michael Cohen on campaign finance violations, but we can't do it with what we have from his office. We got to get somebody else to corroborate what he did. Who's the only person on earth that Michael Cohen did business with outside of Stormy Daniels' attorney?
Yeah, National Enquirer.
David Pecker. So they waltz into Pecker's office and they say, look, if you want to make it easy on yourself, you've got to tell us what happened and we'll give you immunity because we got to back up our stuff that Cohen did something wrong in campaign finance. So the Pecker said, oh, yeah, okay, give me immunity. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. Now, that doesn't mean that
he has anything.
Yeah, doesn't mean that Pecker knew anything about campaign finance. All he knew is that Michael Cohen paid him.
Right.
That's all he knew. He might have known more. Maybe there was a big blaze on the check that said, this is from Donald Trump's campaign finance.
Right.
Maybe.
Well,
maybe
there is
of the check. I doubt it.
There is some evidence of a transfer of funds from the campaign in around that amount, and we're not sure if it's connected or not. But all I'm driving towards is this if that exists, that proof.
Yes.
This is the same thing of Watergate, because Watergate, that break-in, was financed by the committee to reelect the president.
That's right.
That's what.
If they can prove that Trump knew campaign finance money was used to hush the women, then he's through.
Back in just a minute with Bill O'Reilly. All right, Bill. I know we're working on if. But one thing I've gotten a lot of feedback on this week, or questions from audience members, is if he is impeached and removed from office, and if these things do come, that they have evidence that he was using campaign finance or campaign funds, then it is Watergate. So there's a precedence on this. What does that do to the country? Does his, any number of his followers, do they just let this happen, or do they cry injustice and not let it go? Does Donald Trump do what Nixon did and resign, or does he go through the whole trial?
Well, first of all, it'd have to be very vivid proof. And to me, that would be, I know Trump pretty well. I mean, I don't think he makes mistakes like that. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say that he did allow campaign finance money to pay these women off.
You probably remember the Nixon thing better than I do. I don't remember Nixon necessarily. It was the missing, 19 minutes or 18 minutes. He wasn't. It wasn't
the same thing, though, because Nixon didn't direct the stuff in the Watergate break-in. What Nixon got impeached for, or was going to get impeached for, was covering it up and lying about it after the fact. This would be Trump actually directing. This would have to be that. Pay the women with campaign funds. I just can't imagine he would do that.
Right, but if the organization did that, what makes that different than Nixon?
To do with it. If he didn't have anything to do with it and he didn't know about it.
But wait, neither did Richard Nixon, you just told me.
But once Nixon was informed about it, he did not tell the truth to the investigators. He didn't tell the truth about it. He lied and covered it up and ordered hush money payments to people who knew the truth. So it's a different thing. They caught Nixon for basically lying after the fact. This charge is that Trump directed the money to these women, who, by the way, if you read my column this week, are basically extortionists, these two women. I mean, it's amazing what they did, and now they're heroes at CNN. But let's get back to Trump. So it would have to be very vivid, almost in a memo form. Yeah, Donald Trump ordered money taken out of his campaign fund bank account and given to these women. Now, if that is shown, his support will dissipate. There won't be very many people saying, "Well, it's okay."
But if it's proof for beyond reasonable doubt, it's never going to be that clear cut.
Well, if it isn't that clear cut, and they're relying on Michael Cohen and a National Enquirer guy, then Trump's got a fighting chance. Remember, Bill Clinton lied about his dalliance in the Oval Office with an intern. That's pretty bad, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and he wasn't even close to being convicted in the Senate for impeachment. I mean, they got 50 votes and they needed 66. It wasn't close. So the politician said, yeah, all right, he did it, but it's not that bad. If there isn't a smoking gun and it's he said, she said, that's the same thing that's going to happen. The House can bring articles, but the Senate, you're never going to get 66 votes in the Senate to throw them out.
Any doubt in your mind, no matter what the evidence is, if the Democrats take control of the House, they impeach him?
It's a risk. Because if they impeach him on nothing, then they're almost guaranteeing his reelection in 2020. I mean, people aren't stupid. They're being lied to by the press. But as I said, they're walking away from the lies. They're not stupid. I mean, and Trump's got a machine that can get it out there that this is ridiculous.
Okay.
So if the Democrats impeach on nothing, they'll lose the presidential election next one.
All right. Let me change topics. I want to play this audio, and I don't want the audience's head to explode. And you're going to this will make you crawl out of your skin. This is Chris Cuomo talking to Kellyanne Conway, and he's accusing her of using one person's death to raise a flag and say, if you're not with us, then you don't care. And I want you to count the number of hypocritical statements that Chris Cuomo is going to make. It is the most unaware of his own.
There's a huge lack of self-awareness going on in this particular clip.
I've never seen anything like it. Listen to the clip.
There was wall-to-wall coverage about a missing woman in Iowa until she was found, and God rest her soul.
Let's count.
And then you don't even have the decency.
You're not letting her soul rest.
Oh, yes,
You're waving her like a flag.
No, I would never.
We're hijacking her grief.
How dare you?
If you're not with us about immigrants, then you don't care about Molly Tibbetts. How dare you?
No,
and how dare the president?
I count that as
just
two.
like Kate Steinle. So if you don't want to abuse immigrants the way the president does, if you don't want want to assume they're all murders, the way the president wants people to believe, that you don't care about Kate Steinle and Molly Tibbetts.
He has never said that. You don't care about the ones who have been murdered, to say this is how it happened. This is how we can all
Over 17,000 murders in this country in 2016. How many times has he stood up and said this is an atrocity, what happened?
Many times.
Only when the people who kill them are someone that he wants to target.
That's not true.
That would be for Talk to Me About Chicago.
CNN covered 55 minutes of a live meeting in the cabinet room in late January, where he was flanked by Democrats and Republicans from the House and the Senate to talk about DACA, the Dreamers. Where did they go? Why aren't they there? Why when the Democrats talk about immigration?
Schumer told me, and he denied it.
Why when they talk about immigration, Christopher, do they only think of the Dreamers? Why?
There's the truth.
Why don't they respect
Here we go.
Listen to this.
Here's a nice us-them thing. Are we back to the farmers in South Africa, the real racism problem?
There's
yes or no? Do you think that's a good idea to have immigration?
It's not my job to make policy decisions. It is my job to test them. And I'll tell you what I think is wrong. Saying that you care about Molly Tibbetts and calling her permanently separated from her family. Is that how you describe someone when they're murdered?
I just said God rest her soul, and I didn't say her name.
He said she was permanently separated from her family. Is that the time to play ugly politics because he's upset about what happened with him putting kids in cages?
But why can't
permanently separated?
Why can't you say what happened? Why can't you say there are
I did 2
cracks
segments on it yesterday. Of course there are cracks in the system. Of course her murder, but for that man being here illegally, wouldn't have happened.
On Kate's Law? Do you think the grief of Laura
I think that you should do whatever you can to stop illegal immigration, but you don't have to treat the immigrants like crap to do that.
No.
9. I counted 9 hypocritical statements in that. Bill, your comment.
All right. First of all, it's impossible to even listen to them because they're just talking over each other, and that's ridiculous. And, he doesn't know how to control the interview. But he said something very interesting in the last 30 seconds. He said, of course, you should do whatever you can to mitigate the illegal immigration problem. Okay, not him, you. Now, Kellyanne Conway is a guest, not a host. But if it were me debating Chris Cuomo, I would have stopped it right there and go, okay, you want to make the illegal immigration situation a little bit more protective for the American citizens, right? And, of course, he'd have to say yes. I said, how do you want to do that? And then because Chris Cuomo opposes every single way to provide more protection for people like Molly Tibbetts. Now, you counted up his hypocritical things, they go flying out the window. He doesn't want a wall. He doesn't want ICE agents raiding work sites. He doesn't want sanctions against sanctuary cities that protect criminal illegal aliens. This is Chris Cuomo. Okay? You don't want any of that. So you want hypocrisy. There you go. He says to his audience, yeah, you should do whatever you can to improve the illegal immigration problem. But he opposes every single thing that has been proposed to do that. I wipe them off the face of the earth. CNN, of course, wouldn't care because they don't, it's not a matter of efficiency there. It's a matter of ideology. So that's pretty much what it is, and they talk over each other. And I, of course, then watch the Jet game or whatever's else.
I think everybody did. I'm going to give you that extra point that makes 10 hypocritical statements. Then.
Yeah, but that's the big one.
Yeah,
that crushes Chris Cuomo.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Bill, I'm going on vacation for a week.
You are? Another one?
Yeah. What do you mean another one?
I mean, you were just off July 4th for like 18 days. I saw you wandering around Utah.
I'm 20 years into working for this company. I get more than 2 weeks a year.
And I applaud you for it. Where are you going? Going someplace fun?
Yeah, I am. Taking the kids up into the mountains.
The mountains.
Yes.
Now, is there any destination, or you just wander?
No, we just wander. We're looking. Yeah. I'm actually looking. We're going to build an altar, my wife and I. I'm going to have the kids bring some sticks.
Good. Is this the Utah mountains, Colorado mountains? Where?
This is Idaho mountains.
Idaho way.
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah,
very
nice,
good.
Very nice.
Now, in reality, though, you're in a luxury hotel in Ketchum, right?
I'm going to L.A. and just hanging out with
your Bel Air hotel. Get that suck out of my room.
All right, Bill. Good.